Okay, so overall, we got a clarity what is serialization and what is deserialization. Then some points coming under serialization and deserialization that we will know. So one point is transient keyword. Transient keyword. Transient keyword, basically the transient keyword is a modifier. So here data member is X and Y. So if a particular variable, suppose Y, I will declare as a transient. So what is happening? Transient means not to serialize. Not to serialize. I don't want to save Y value into file to meet the security constraint. Suppose I will tell you, say your mail ID, everybody can tell, okay, my mail ID is this. If I will tell, say your password, nobody will tell. Okay, suppose X is my mail ID username and Y value is password. So if username value, password value, I will save in a file so anybody can get. So it is not fulfilling or it is not satisfying security. To meet the security constraints, sometimes some property we will not serialize. If our requirement is that, if our purpose is that not to serialize some particular property, then that property I will declare as transient. The keyword transient is a modifier. The keyword transient is a modifier to meet the security constraint. If you don't want to save the value of a particular variable, then that variable I will declare as a transient. So when a variable is declared as transient, then what the JVM will do? JVM will ignore the original value. Suppose if this variable I will declare as transient, and when the this object, so this object if I will serialize, then at that time, so X value is 100 that I can get, but Y value I can get 0. The default value means Y is int type of variable, so the default value of int is 0. So at that time JVM will ignore the original value of a transient variable and save the default value. So int default value is 0. So that value 0, the JVM will save into the file. So this is the purpose of transient. Transient is a keyword. The keyword transient is a modifier. The keyword transient is a modifier. And if a particular variable I will declare as transient, then so that value, original value, so what that we will get, that will change to 0 if I will perform serialization and deserialization. You see, if suppose I will declare as a transient. So I will save, go to command prompt, Java C serialize example dot Java, then Java space class name serialize example. Okay, so the value of Y is 0. The value of Y is 0. Transient when, so what we are observing, when a variable is declared as transient, so that variable cannot serialize. So the original value JVM is ignoring and putting the default value. So that's why here we got the X value is 100 and the Y value is 0. Then we will go to the next point. Suppose there is a point static versus a transient. Static versus transient. Static variable. Suppose a variable is a static variable. Here, as per the discussion we saw, transient int y equals to 200. Suppose this fact y that I am declaring as transient. Suppose this variable is a static variable. Static variable. So we know that what do you mean a static variable? So this is an object. Which object? Cat object. So this cat object is C1. Property is X is 100. Let Y is 200. So now C1, this object C1, we are serializing. Static variable that already we have known. Static variable always a class level concept. Suppose X is a variable, so it is an instance variable. So when the object we are declaring C1, so X, it is containing X, but if Y is static, so here static variable that Y a memory is allocating the name of the memory in that memory containing a variable, so that is Y and the value is 200. You just recall in chapter class and object we have studied static variable, static method and static block. So static variable always separately a memory is allocating in a method area. So so static particularly, so variable is assigning so in that memory. So when I want to serialize, serialize means I will save this property into a file. So here X equals to 100. Okay. So X equals to 100. So if a static variable I will create as or I will declare as a transient. But there is no meaning because static variable, so what? So that variable is not coming inside the object. Okay. So if it is not an object, so which things we are serializing? C1 we are serializing. C1 is the cat class object. So object means what? Object means a memory. C1, name of the memory is C1. So here C1 is containing X value, but Y value is not here because Y is a static variable we have considered. So static variable here, this is Y. Okay, but which thing we are serializing? C1 is serializing. So C1 will go to, that means this property will go to file. So this static variable so is not able to save in the file because we are serializing object. Point number one. So if it is not serializing, so if this variable Y, if this property Y is not serializing, then if I will put transient keyword, if that variable, that static variable, I will declare as transient keyword, so there is no meaning, there is no use. You see, so if I will suppose this is a static variable, so output will be Y is 200, but this 200 is coming from, so as per the value of static variable. So here transient keyword once we are using, there is no meaning. So now I will say, because when I am declaring an object C1, C1 is containing X value, C1 is not containing Y value because Y is a static variable. So already we have studied static variable when a variable is declared as static, separately a memory will allocate. Okay, so in a heap, so all the memory, all the object can share that memory. Just to recall, so that point we had studied, static variable is specifically used for memory management. Static variable is used for saving the memory. So here y is a static variable. Once we will declare, so that variable is not the property of C1, but here serialization operation that we are performing, that means object we are serializing. Here object name is C1. So we are serializing C1. So since y is not coming under C1, so then y, particularly that variable y, is not serializing. That means y is not saving into file. So y is in another location. So that static variable, if I will declare as transient, there is no meaning. There is no use. Now I will save. So I will go to command prompt, Java C serialize example dot Java, then Java space class name serialize example. You see 100, 200, but this 200, so that value coming from another memory, and 100 is the X value. So if I am putting transient keyword, so there is no meaning, but transient means default value should display. So I hope everybody got clarity. Static, if a static variable I will declare as a transient, and another thing is, if a variable, that y variable is a final variable, final versus transient. Suppose a final variable, suppose that variable, so I will write transient final int y equals to 200. Fine transient final int y. First of all, we will know what do you mean by final. So already we all have studied final. So this y, if I will declare as final. So here also same concept. There is no meaning of transient. How? Final variable. Final variable, that means that value is fixed. Suppose I will take this as final. This is final. First we will consider this. First we will do the analysis. Final. So if a variable is declared as final, so when I will perform serialize, so x equals to 100, so y equals to 200 is not coming, only 200 is coming. Final, when a variable is declared as final, so the value is fixed directly at the time of compilation. The compiler will check the value, not type. If a variable is not declared as final, then at the time of compilation, the compiler is checking type, not value. So here directly at the time of compilation, compiler will read value. Okay. So at the time of compilation, we can change the value, but at the runtime, we cannot change. Once the variable value is final, that value is fixed at the runtime. We cannot change the value. If we change the value, then we will get error. But you remember, any final property, any final variable, if I want to serialize, so y is final, but when I will serialize, so 200 will come. Then when I will deserialize, so in this way I will get same things, x equals to 100 I will get, and y equals, sorry, not y, simply 200 will get. So final variable is not going, value is going in place of variable, because this value is fixed at the time of compilation. The compiler always read value, not type. Okay. So if variable is not serializing, you see, I will save, same output I will get. Java C serialize example.java Java space class name serialize example. You see same output I will get because variable is not going to file value. So if the variable is not going, then there is no effect of a transient. Because if a variable I will declare transient, then it will be 0. Because transient variable not to serialize. Transient variable meant for representing not to serialize. But here variable is not going to the file. Value is going to the value is going to file. Value is saving in a file because that variable, that property is final. So static when a static variable if I will declare as transient, there is no use, there is no meaning, there is no effect. Similarly, when a final variable I will declare as transient, so there is no meaning of transient keyword in case of final variable. Okay, so I hope you got clarity. So static versus a transient, final versus transient. So overall, transient keyword is a modifier, and when the property I will declare as transient, so that property cannot serialize. JVM will ignore that original value of that variable. Instead of that, JVM will put default value. So this is the point of transient.